3. Hi, this is Dr. Becky Whetstone. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and I'm here for the second episode of Curl Talk with my co-host, who's my daughter, Casey Marie Schmidt. Casey, I know that you and I have been talking about different subjects that we think would be helpful to people out there who are trying to learn how to have better relationships. And you had a really interesting topic that I'm also passionate about, and I was wondering if you could kick it off.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of a never-ending feminist struggle that has been going on since the dawn of time, but basically it's just how to lean in without seeming like a bitch. And so, I feel like I'm naturally a good-natured and kind person, but as long as I've been around, the teenage and adult world, anytime I've been very kind, I've been written off as naive and a pushover. You're helping this person just because you can't stand up for yourself. You're doing this because you can't stand up for yourself. And, now that I've spent more time in the workforce, I've seen that any woman who is in an authoritative position is often framed as a bitch. She's unapproachable, she's rude, she's mean, she doesn't take no for an answer. And I've seen that a lot in relationships too. I've had a lot of guy friends. I've lost a lot of them to very powerful women who will not let them have girl friends. And it's all about, they'll say, well, she's a strong woman. But to me, when I'm around them, they're rude, they're mean. And I just have this struggle where I want to stay kind, especially, in the work position that I have now, which is, a work administrative position. And I want to stay kind. I want to stay helpful because that's my nature. However, I feel just more and more as I do that, I'm taken advantage of. People see me as a pushover. Well, as long as you're kind, you'll just do anything for anyone. And really, it hurts my heart that the only time I can really say no is when I'm combative. I'm a bitch,
Right.
And so how can you stay kind and true to yourself without being an aggressive, bitch?
First of all, the first thing I want to say should be an entire show and maybe 2 or 3, because it's extremely important and extremely common. And that is as we are children, many of us decide that we're not good enough for what our culture or our family or our religion or education or whatever expects us to be, our families. We kind of look around and go, man, I can't be all these great things everybody wants me to be. So we conclude that we're not good enough. And in that same decision of deciding that we're not good enough, we create a persona that we deem to be good enough. So one of the most common personas that my clients who do this have, and this applies to men and women, is the pleaser, the nice guy, the nice girl, and it is dysfunctional. First of all, you're not being true to yourself. You're acting in a sort of way so that you'll be accepted and not be rejected, and people will like you. And then of course, as it plays out, the idea is if I'm this wonderful person, I'll get lots of friends and all the things that I want, and I'll get my needs met. But it doesn't really work that way. And so I am coaching people constantly about this dynamic. And part of the problem is so many of my clients see it in black and white. It's like on this end of the spectrum, I'm a nice girl or nice guy. And if I come over here and set a boundary with somebody or tell them I don't want to do that thing, or I'm not comfortable with that, or just no, now you're a bitch or an asshole, you know? And no, and so people don't know that there's a middle ground. And as I tell men, you know, many men are losing their masculinity in trying to become this nice guy. And many women are suffering and resentful because they're being so nice, but they're really not getting where they want to get in their life. And so they're all allergic to bitch or asshole. I tell the men, women don't want nice guy because he's kind of wimpy. He's kind of not masculine. You know, we like the masculine energy is man with a plan. He knows what he wants. He knows where he's going, but he is not an asshole. Women do not want assholes. So the middle ground for a man is gentle, nice man. So that's a man who knows who he is. He knows what he wants, and he will speak up and say, no, I won't do that, or I'm not able to do that, or I don't want to do that. Or he speaks out and is true to himself. So that's kind of like the key to becoming healthy anyway, is to stop trying to be a certain way. And like, I've decided I want to be nice, you know, that's an act. That's like being phony. And it takes so much energy to put on these acts. And I'll tell you what, these people that take on the pleaser and nice girl persona, they're some of the angriest people in the world underneath it, because they get stomped on, they get taken advantage of. You know, if a lot of my clients are people that have kind of a policy for themselves that it's not nice to say no. So then they're wearing themselves ragged, doing all these things, because there's people out there that know where y'all are, you nice people. And they have no problem taking advantage of you and having you do things for them. But heaven forbid that a nice guy or a nice girl is going to ask somebody over here to do something for them. They don't want to bother people, you know, they don't want to ever cause any ripples or waves. So that is the dynamic. And then in the middle is just a woman, a confident woman who knows herself well enough to know, I'm not willing to do this. And I'm a recovering pleaser. And I learned in the process of setting boundaries for the first time about 25 or 30 years ago when I first stepped out and did it. And it's very terrifying the first time or two you do it. And then you get such relief because all of a sudden you're not on that volunteer committee that you didn't want to be on. All of a sudden you're not having to go do this thing you didn't want to do. And you're just going like, man, this feels so good to not be overburdening myself, you know? And then you find out that you don't lose friends when you do this, and you find out that the sky doesn't cave in, and you know, the world keeps going around. And so it's really not that bad of a thing. It's actually, to me, it's the only way to live.
Okay, well, I mean, one of the main places that I face this struggle is in the workplace. And I feel like in that scenario, the situation is completely different, because just naturally you are supposed to bow down a little bit to your superiors and be a little bit more amicable. And, you know, you need to make yourself available and just be pliable and all of these different things. And so if you are a pleaser by nature and you're trying to be a good worker, you want to be, you know, just a good employee, make yourself available. It just, how can you be a kind, good worker who is assertive, who advocates for themselves, but does not get taken advantage of? Because, you know, in the last, however, 10, 12, 15 years, you know, that I've been working, one thing, you know, even if every part of my life is not working, I can always say I'm a good worker. You know, I'm a hardworking employee. My employers always like me because I work my tail off, and I will, you know, when I go home, I still work, and that's probably not the best, but you know, it makes me a favored employee. And so, you know, how can I
And what
do
I'm
that?
visualizing when you're saying that is a pack mule, you know, is throw one more pan on your back, throw one more sleeping bag on your back, you know, one more parcel on your back, you know, and there's only so much that a pack mule can carry. So that's the thing is you get this reputation of being a pack mule. And so I think, you know, pleasers have to learn phrases to set boundaries with people that are diplomatic and soft. And that's how I do it. One of my first phrases that I came up with when I first started telling people no was, oh, you know, that sounds really nice, but I've just got too much on my plate right now. That's something that people just aren't going to mess with you when you say something like that. And they don't think any less of you because most of us completely, you know, relate to the idea of having too much on our plate. So like you might tell people at work, look, I am so swamped today. I would love to help you, but I am not going to be able to get to this till at least Wednesday. Is that okay? You know, and you've got to be okay if people get disappointed. I have clients that absolutely inconvenience themselves like you would not believe to keep from disappointing people. And,
No, that sounds familiar.
well, guess what? You know, you're going to disappoint me sometimes. You and I mean, just like human beings disappoint one another. And the deal is we're adults. We're big boys and girls. It's not like we're children and we're planning to go to the circus and you tell me all of a sudden you're not taking me. I'm not a child. So you're telling me you can't do that thing for me at work that I really need you to do because you've already got too much on your plate. You know, I am going to have to go with that, and I'm going to have to practice self-care. If I'm disappointed, I'll be able to get through it. It's not the end of the world.
Well, you know, something that I've faced, because I think that I finally, after years and years, have gotten to the point where I can do that first step, where I can tell people, you know, this is where I'm at. Like, I absolutely want to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm not able to do X, Y, and Z. Maybe I can do X at this date, blah, blah, blah. What I've now found a new struggle with is that they will have a counteroffer. And I feel so, I mean, the pleaser in me that is still just, it's not full pleaser level, but it's still there, feels like, well, they're compromise, you know, I feel like I have to give in a little just by nature. And I
That's
know,
just
like,
a
in my
lie you're
brain,
telling yourself.
I know that I shouldn't, but you know, if I say, they ask me to do something and I'm like, you know, I'm thinking back, you know, to a point where I was ill recently. And, you know, my company was amazing about it. But it was a very vague gray area illness, you know, and recovery where it just didn't make any sense. It was very confusing and just up and down. And so it was hard to explain to people sometimes that I just couldn't do things at some, you know, I could be fine one day and then completely not fine the next day. And so, you know, I might be asked to do or help with something one day and I'm just like, I know I can't do that. I'm like, okay, well, what if we did this and this and this to accommodate you? Then could you do it? And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, no, I know I can't. But I'm like, well, they're trying to help, you know, they're trying to help me.
Only you know what you need and what you're capable
Yeah.
of. And
But
you
it's also, it's something that I've faced with, you know, pretty much every workplace that I've been in where, you know, I will maybe try to have a hard line with someone and they will give me a counter offer, and just because they gave me that counteroffer, I feel just some sense of obligation, just maybe it's part of being a woman where you just feel like, oh, well, let me be flexible, like, let me be pliable to them. They've done this for me. Let me do this for that, like, I just need to meet them in the middle. And it's just part of being a woman and, being accommodating. And it's just natural that when someone tries to meet you in the middle, you want to try to meet them rather than just say, nope, nope, because, they're not going to see that as you being a strong, person, an advocate for yourself. They're going to see that as you being a bad worker.
I disagree. Here's my litmus test for when I really set a firm boundary. And that is, I ask myself, is this healthy for me? Like I think about, how many clients can I fit in a day and maintain my inner peace and my spark, and be truly interested in my clients? Or when am I getting burned out and starting to look at my watch and say, when is this going to be over? It's not fair to my clients to do that to them, that I'm getting tired. I don't want to talk anymore. And so I ask myself, so I get a text or a phone call from somebody going, oh, I really would like to talk to you this afternoon. If you could just throw me on at the end of the day. I'm looking at my calendar. I've already got 5 or 6 people. 7 is the number that just absolutely sends me over the top. So the question is this healthy for me? The answer is no, it is not. And if it's not healthy for me, then I really have to value my need over their need in this moment. And it's okay, because what I need is as important as what they need. And I'm not being a bad worker by doing that. I am setting limits for my mental and emotional health. And they know that you're a hard worker, but there's only so much any human being can do in a day. And part of humanity's problem is they overestimate how much they can do in a day, and then they make themselves miserable. So I think that you've got to count on the fact that the people you're dealing with are adults, and they'll be able to lick their wounds and move on and deal with it if you can't do every single thing that they ask. And you are not obligated to do more than what you're capable of doing.
But I don't know. I mean, to be perfectly honest, anytime I talk to you and Dad about this, I'm like, y'all have just been out of the normal workplace for too long to know what the heck I'm talking about. Like, it is not idealized. Like, yes, of course, in a perfect world, they'd just be like, you know what? You're right. She doesn't need to do this. We can get someone else. We can do this. We can go through HR. We can, all of those things. No. But what you said you disagreed with was my saying that they are going to automatically consider me an unreliable, bad worker. And I don't see how that's, that is what they see. They don't care what the circumstances are. I don't mean the company I'm in now, because they did more than they had to. They paid 75% of my hospital bills before I had worked there long enough for my insurance to clear. They told me my job would be waiting for me when I came back. Like, they did everything that they possibly could have done. But, I just mean in general, workplaces where you're an hourly worker, they are not going to care for that long. They are just not. They're not going to think that you're just strong.
Another litmus test for setting a boundary, a healthy boundary for yourself. Because see, this is all about self-care, and my philosophy, based on what I know as a therapist, self-care is the #1 most important thing any of us can do in a day. That trumps everything. That comes over everything. Okay. So if I'm
Yes,
starting
but
to,
what if I had practiced self-care, if I'd made that a priority at a time where, they were asking me, and it was perfectly reasonable for them to ask me, because some days I would be a little okay, I would be normal and I would look completely normal, be dressed and makeup the exact same way I would showing up for a normal day of work. I'd be sitting there looking normal. They would ask me to do something, and it would seem weird for me to just be like, I can't do it. I can't. It made no sense. Outwardly, there was nothing wrong with me. And
but see,
so,
that's exactly what I would tell them. I would say something
no,
like, man, I know I look healthy and like I'm strong, but I'm just struggling with my energy level and
I know,
I want to help you, very much, but I just physically right now, I'm not back up to what you're used to.
and that's what I did tell them. But if I was totally just for my self-care, I would have quit my job the day after I got the illness that I did, because I'm still not back to normal. And it's been over a year. And if it was just about self-care, I would have quit right then. Or, I would have, if the second they asked me to do something, I would have told them, you know what, me before you, 2 weeks notice, bye-bye. And where would that leave me?
But
I
this,
would, and it's not like I can apply for it. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, power to the people, self-care, but what does that do for the little people who can't? I mean, we have to work.
I
You
know
have to
you
bow
have to
down
work,
to the
but you
big
are
people.
not, you are not a beast of burden. There's only so much you can do. And I don't see this as a problem with the people you're working for. I see when people are in situations like yours and you're telling yourself, I have to keep doing everything they want from me all the time, go at 80 miles an hour
Not
all the
necessarily,
time.
but I have to still be a good worker and I have to work. There are only so many things you can say no to before they decide that you're
I'm not
not.
saying say no. I'm saying giving enough space to do whatever it is they're asking so it doesn't burden you. I'm talking about coming up with a plan B so that perhaps you do what they need and want you to do, but that it's not going to be in an hour. It's not going to be this afternoon. I'm talking about creating space for yourself. Like, I cannot do this for you today. I already have too much on my plate. So, but I could have it for you by Wednesday or Thursday, or try to help you find somebody else to do it for you, you know.
I
And
understand
and
that. I mean,
the thing is though, that this is what creates respect. And when you keep saying yes, yes, yes to your own detriment, you are now a doormat, and no one respects a doormat. If you're looking to move up, yeah, people want hard workers, but they also want people who, have a sense of self-respect. And self-respect is, as you're taking care of yourself, and you get in your mind like how much you can do in a day, and then you don't go past that. And this, jobs like what you have these are the jobs that, and I've had jobs like that, these every day, it gives us more information to know who we are. And you're learning about who you are right now. You also may be learning about the kind of occupations that aren't healthy for you in the long run, that, you may get in your mind like, because of my personality being this way right now, I shouldn't be in a job like this. I should be maybe in a job where there's a set task every day, and you've got 10 steps, and then you're finished, and then you can go home. Whereas the kind of job you have right now, you're learning that it's not healthy for you when you're in a position of Miss Catch-all, Miss Do-it-all, and people are walking in and throwing stuff on your desk. You know, that may be the information that you need to conclude that that kind of job is not healthy for you. And that's exactly why I became self-employed, is I had just enough of office gossip, backstabbing, criticism, you know, just all the toxic stuff that's in every workplace, the people that are impossible, the bullies, the harassment, whatever, you know. And then perhaps, you know, the boss is not having your back when they should have, kind of thing. And so enough experiences like that in your life, and that's when I made a promise to myself, within 5 years, I will be self-employed. And that's when I went back to grad school and started to become a therapist. And then the day I got my license to be a counselor, I put my shingle up and never worked for another person again. And that's what's healthy for me. That's my self-care. And I am my boss, and I'm the slave driver now, or not. You know, so like right now, I got really burnt out. So I'm only working 3 days a week right now till I can kind of get my mojo back. And then I might add some more hours to my schedule. But so you've got to think too, is this is just data for you to help you understand who you want to be as you formulate your career. It's obvious to me that you don't like that you don't thrive in this kind of a position.
Well, I mean, just like in my mind, you know, I've been in, I mean, I'm a worker who will stay with a place for years. You know, I don't just go in it and leave, and I become passionate about whatever I'm doing, even if it's not something that's based on my passion, like my natural passions. But you know, I've been in positions where I've been compliant. I've done everything that I've been asked. And I've been in positions where I'm like, you know, I can see what this company or this, you know, business needs to really make it. And, you know, they'll ask us our opinions, and I'll say like, hey, this really needs to be done. This needs to be done. This thing's broken. Like, we should really do this, or wouldn't it be great if we had this? And then at my performance reviews, they'll say, you know, you're always negative. You're always complaining. And I'm just, I mean, I thought y'all wanted to know what was wrong. Like, and just, so it's pretty much like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Like if you are, and you know, it's funny when you were describing earlier about what women want in a man, you know, I remembered immediately that you always make the connection with the movie Gone with the Wind. And that women prefer a Rhett Butler,
frankly, my dear, I don't
rather
give a
than
damn.
an Ashley Wilkes. And when I first brought this, you know, how do you stay true to yourself and kind and be strong topic to you, I mentioned the female leads in that same movie, Melanie Wilkes and Scarlett OHara. And so it was interesting because that really is the battle. You know, women want a certain amount of strength and a certain amount of power and dependability. But, you know, Melanie in that movie is an icon to me personally, because she is someone who gives people the benefit of the doubt. She's really, if we're going to put it on religious things, she's like a Jesus figure, where she trusts, she loves, she does for other people as much as she can. She gives, you know, just everything possible of herself. And
But
Scarlett,
she's not being healthy. She's not being healthy.
okay,
And by the
but
way, just an aside, I want you to know that I have learned when I use the Gone with the Wind analogies, about 80% of my clients they've never seen it, and they don't know who those characters are, unbelievably. So, you know, I'll have to add something to this video to help people know about these characters, but
well, that's why I'm giving
they're both the extreme, you know, Rhett Butler being strong and Ashley Wilkes being more feminine, weak man. But Rhett Butler's the one who's going.
And
but she's
Scarlett.
not being healthy. She's not being healthy.
Okay,
And by the
but
way, just an aside, I want you to know that I have learned when I use the Gone with the Wind analogies, about 80% of my clients they've never seen it and they don't know who those characters are, unbelievably. So, you know, I'll have to add something to this video to help people know about these characters, but
well, that's why I'm getting
they're both the extreme, you know, Rhett Butler being strong and Ashley Wilkes being more feminine, weak man. But Rhett Butler's the one who's going to rescue you when the Yankees are coming to town, you know. And then Scarlett OHara is too
she's the vixen.
She's, you know, too obstinate and difficult and feisty. And then there's Melanie, who doesn't have a spine at all and is kind of like an amoeba. So what I'm telling you is the healthy.
She just said she was my hero, and she's a hero to me.
Well, I mean, let's face it, in that particular movie, Scarlett was in love with Melanie's husband, and Melanie never did one thing about it. You know, and so that tells me right there that she would allow herself to suffer before she would set a boundary with someone else. And so, and that's what I'm telling you is she allowed herself to be a pack mule and still smiling at Scarlett, who was in love with her husband. And even though Scarlett would have stolen Ashley from her at any moment and left Melanie high and dry. And, you know, so I mean, yes, you can respect the Christ-like nature of that character, but she also was not being healthy for herself. But the bottom line point about the, you know, when you have that nice person and the jerk, you know, over here, I'm telling you that you can set a boundary in the middle by stating what, you know, setting your boundary and saying, I can do this, but let me get it to you on Thursday, not today, or whatever. And by being diplomatic and friendly in the delivery of your message, you know, and it's just learning how to communicate with people, but setting that firm boundary, but in a kind way. I'm telling you, the sky doesn't fall. You don't get a bad review when you set a boundary, but you're talking about the one who doesn't set the boundary, who does become the pack mule, once again, is seen with no respect and a pack mule. Okay. And I would prefer to be the one they respect, that they know that, you know, I'll do it if I'm able, but I won't do it if I'm not able. The other thing too, don't ever give up your inner peace so someone else can have it. That's a very unhealthy deal to make.
But don't you think the circumstances are different in work when it's already kind of a given that you're in service?
I understand. I remember when I worked at the newspaper in San Antonio, like sometimes it'd be like 4 o'clock and I'm going to pick you and Benjamin up at 6. And my boss walks up to my desk and said, can you do this story tonight, you know, for us? And I remember my heart sinking and then going, yes, I'll get it for you. You know, I remember stepping up to the plate. But on the other hand, I really wanted to do the story. My problem was I felt bad about, you know, calling your dad to come pick you up, or, you know, getting someone else to do it. So that was my dilemma, is because I loved the things they asked me to do. You know, I love that job. So, you know, there's all sorts of dilemmas, but if it was a job and they were putting something on me that I didn't give a flip about and it wasn't going to make any difference in my life 5 or 10 years from now, no, I would set the boundary for sure. You've got to set people's expectations. You don't want them to think that you can go 180 miles an hour 5 days a week. You need to pull the speed down and get their expectations down to where they let you drive 65. And with that, that's about all the time we have for today. And I hope that this conversation helped. And please email us, ask us questions. If you'd like to be a guest on our show, please let us know. We love, love, love to hear from you. So please email us. Visit us at our website at curltalk.net, and you'll find our email addresses there. And we thank you so much for joining us today. And I thank you, Casey Marie, for bringing such an interesting and thought-provoking subject. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.